loops, and other statements like that. So today we'll be looking at functions properly. Because I remember at last class, I just briefed through what functions are, and so it was properly explained in the first class. But today we'll be showing how to define functions and how to call them. So our contents here, we first learn how to define a function, how to call it, what parameters are, what arguments are, and the difference between parameters and arguments, because they are quite similar. So if I'm too fast at any point, call me back and feel free to ask any question that you have. Okay, so what are functions? So a function is a block of code that does not produce an output unless it is called. So when you write the code for a function, you won't get any outputs, even if you run it, until you call the function. And then it is used to do a certain thing multiple times. If you want to do something repeatedly, you can just write a function to do it. So you can call the function anytime you need the code in the function. So this means that rather than writing a set of code multiple times, it can be defined in a function and called whenever it is needed. Yeah. For a function to be used, it has to first be defined, then called. So you first define a function before you can call it. Then DEF is used to define a function. That's this. DEF is used to define a function. Then now we're going to learn how to define a function. So I broke it down into simpler steps. You have to first declare the function, add any parameters if you need, create a function body, then specify the return statement if it is necessary. So function declaration. So to declare a function, you use the DEF and the function name that will be used to call the function. So every function has a name, and it's the name used to call the function whenever you need the function. So to define a function, use DEF and the name, and then you put a parenthesis after, and then a colon. Because of this colon, functions also use indentation. We discussed indentation in the last class. So after this colon, the next line will be indented. So this is a simple way of defining a function. Can try that out. I try that out here. Okay, so I want to define a function now. I'll use DEF. Then, for instance, now I want to name my name function, or name my function, then a parenthesis, then a colon, then enter, and there's the indent that we spoke about in the last class. I hope you're following, please. Okay, thank you. So that is how to declare a function. That's the first step in defining a function. Next thing to do when defining a function, is to add your parameters, if any. So not all functions have parameters, but some do. Parameters are optional values because not all functions have them, and they allow values to be passed to a function when it is called. So this name here, if I do not put this here in that bracket, when I need to call the function, I'll not be able to pass any value through the function. And sometimes you need to pass values through a function. So to be able to do that, you have to add a parameter. So they allow functions to accept and work with specific values provided by the caller and make them more flexible and reusable. Parameters are specified inside the parentheses. That is this. So this name here is a parameter. And this is an example of how to use a parameter in the code. I'm defining a function greet with the parameter name. Then I want the function to print hello plus name. So I'm just concatenating the name and hello as my output for this function. So if I were to call this function or run it, because I've put a parameter, I can always specify a value when I'm calling the function and do that like this. So for this first function I wrote, I didn't put any parameter. There's nothing in the bracket, so no parameter. So if I'm to say print or return, return,
Face this or Jimmy, one time score today.
return 2,
Bring face now, no shit.
you see that this function didn't bring any output
This,
and there is no error. It means it worked, it has been run, but because, as I said earlier, a function cannot produce output except it is called.
but they record.
So for
Why?
this, for me to get output from this, I have to
Uh,
call the function like
you know
this.
this now, they enjoy life.
Put a function, put the name and then parentheses. Then it will return to, because that's what this function is to do, to return to when it is called. Now, when I want to put parameters, if I'm defining greet, like from the slide, then name, my colon, then enter. I want it to print hello plus name, because name here is like a variable, so I can just add it in concatenation. Then I'll run this, still no output, so I have to call it greet. So because of this name here, I can specify any value I wish to come here in this bracket when I'm calling the function. Any value I want to say hello to, I will bring it into this greet bracket. So if I put my name, I'll get hello Aisha. But if I didn't put this here and I try to do this, I would get an error. I can show you an example of that. If I remove name, the first error I'm going to get here is that name is not defined. I can call the function greet. If I put my name, it will say it didn't expect any positional argument or something like that. See the error. It takes 0 positional argument, but 1 was given. No parameter is specified here. Parameters are used to specify arguments. We're going to look at the differences between parameters and arguments later on. But for now, just know that this here, this name is an argument, while the one put into this bracket here is a parameter. So this is an argument and this is a parameter. So this argument I'm able to put this argument here because I specify the parameter here for this one. But because here there's no parameter and then there's an argument, it's giving me an error which says it takes 0 positional argument and 1 was given. Please, I hope I'm not too fast. Okay, thank you. Just want to confirm. So this is the error to give because I didn't put any parameter here and I tried to put an argument here. So for you to be able to put in any value here, like this first function that I specified here, let me change it, this one to grade 2, so it doesn't affect the first function. So if I try to call the first function again, I can use any name. And then when I run it, sorry, I didn't run this. Right. Because I already defined this one as great. So it is it's taking it as the new great. Meanwhile, it is not. I've changed it back. So I can just rewrite this code from here. So I can get to use this first function. So I'm calling greet now. Yes. So I can use any name. Before I used Aisha, now I'm using Ayo. But because of this parameter, I can always put anything as my argument. So that is why we define parameters when they are necessary, because not every time we need to put a parameter in a function. Sometimes you don't need it, sometimes you need it. So yes, that's on adding parameters. The next thing is creating the function body. So the first two things I just spoke about, how to declare the function and how to add the parameter. That's like the first line of the function. That is this. Define, add numbers. A and B here are the parameters. So now I want to create the function body. That is this. The function body is the actual code in the function, and that's what the function actually does. Whenever I need to call the function, that's what the function will do, or the output I'll get. So as it said here, the function body contains the actual code that is executed when the function is called. It includes the set of instructions or computations that the function will perform. This code is indented and written below the function declaration. Indented, that is this indentation. If I do not indent this, it will not be part of the function and I'll get an error. I'll show you that now. And the code is written below the declaration because obviously you can't write what you want inside the function before you declare the function. So I'm going to do this, show you how this works.
See, you don't get money ways back in
So I
yeah,
want to declare a function to
I
add numbers and then add the function body.
don't get well. Because I'm buying it
Give me a little
after.
space. So I'm defining function add
I tell you.
numbers.
I tell
I
you.
want to run
Yes.
I want to put two parameters,
I don't
then
know.
my colon. So my parameters here are A and
Yeah,
B,
right.
then my colon. Then as you see, there's an indentation here. So I want it to return the sum of two numbers. Add numbers A and B. Let's say A equals, we don't have to return A plus B. I want it to return A plus B. So then I'll call this function add numbers 1, 2, and then sorry. Okay, I didn't put my S here. I didn't put an S here. Function is add numbers, not add number. So yes, I told you to return A plus B and it's returning A plus B. So here, the body is just return A plus B, but I can make it a little bit longer. I can say sum equals A plus B. And then I'll say return sum. So it's the same thing. So it should return the same three. So from here, these two lines are the function body. I can put any other parameter or argument I like here, run any argument to give me the sum. So that's how to add the function body to a function. The next thing we'll be looking at while defining a function is the return statement. So as you can see, I've been using return, and it's working like print. So the return statement, what is the return statement? For a function that should return a value, the return statement is used to specify the value that the function returns after it has executed. Not all functions have to return values. I used print at some points for the function. Sometimes you just want to print something. Sometimes you want to return something when you're using a function. But the return statement is used to return a value. Like when I wanted to return sum in just the previous example, I used return sum, I used return A plus B. So the return statement is used to specify the value that the function returns. So I told you to return A plus B. So the function will return the sum of A and B after the function is executed. Then not all functions need to return a value, but when they do, the return statement is used to send that value back to the caller. When you call your function, the return statement is what gives you your output when you use it. So I can give another example of how to use return statement. Like here, I just need to get the square of a number. Define square of number, that is your name, the function name. This is your parameter x. Then you're returning x times x. That's x squared. So we'll be getting the square of x. We can try that out. I can define a function and then tell you to return the square. for example, define square of number x, then my colon, then indent. Then I want you to return the square of x. Return x times x, because x times x is x squared. And I'll call my function square of number. This is 4.
I want small
The
child.
square of 4 is 16. Obviously, you can also change this number to another value.
Ah,
Let's say 8
yes,
to
we
get
so that's
64.
very much.
That's how to use the return statement. I was talking about the indentation, so I can show you what happens when you do not indent properly. If I take this,
Give these boys flowers.
this is how it works, this is how it should
Una,
work. But if
how
I
did
make
this
mistake in
person
my
use you
indentation,
less than 15
put
minutes?
this return some behind,
Who does my code?
it's telling me return is outside the function because it is supposed to be indented.
If I
To
show my
correct something like this, I can just tab on my keyboard and it will be back into the function. So every value that is inside the function has to be indented and not on the same line with the function. So that is for return statements
No,
and
sir.
indenting the function. Next thing we have here is how to call a function. I've been calling functions for all the examples I wrote, but I just want to properly explain how to call a function. So calling a function is basically the way of executing the function and getting an output. Because if you do not call the function, you will not get any output. We've seen that in several previous examples. Calling a function involves executing the code inside the function. It's only when you call the function that you get the output, that you are able to execute the code that is inside the function. So to execute a function, you need to call it by using its name followed by parentheses. You need to call it using its name, then the parentheses. That's what we've been doing. Like the last example of square number, we put square number, which is the function name, and the parentheses. And if it has a parameter, you put the parameter inside. Oh, sorry, if it has a parameter, you put the argument inside the brackets when you are calling the function. So the parentheses is used to pass any necessary argument to the function and trigger the execution of its code block. When I'm calling a function, I'm passing in arguments. But when I'm declaring the function and defining the function rather, I'm passing in parameters. So this is how to call a function. To call a function, write the function and the parentheses with arguments where applicable. This is add number. This is the name of the function. And this is arguments. Like the previous example, we had add numbers A and B. This is just like how to call that function. This is add numbers. This is our A and this is our B. So what this would return is like 3 plus 4, because that is what we specified when we were declaring the function here. Define add numbers A, B, sum equals A plus B. It will return the sum. And when we're calling the function here, we're adding 3 and 4 to give 7. Then function documentation. You can document a function, you can document your code generally by using comments. So it is optional, but it is a good practice to provide a brief description of what the function does using comments. This documentation helps understand the purpose of the function. It can happen that you write your code and then you later forget what it is used. Maybe after leaving it for a long time and then you want to come back to check through it and you're forgetting what everything is about. It happens. So in that time, we'd see the importance of commenting your code. You can also need the help of other programmers. Maybe you run into an error that you cannot fix by yourself, or you need help debugging or something. You can, when you comment your code, it is easy for them to understand. So they won't be asking you, what is this for? What's that? What are you trying to do? And so many questions. So you comment your code using a hashtag. And then when you comment your code using a hashtag, the code in that hashtag is not run, it is ignored by Python, but it is kept there. I'll show you how that looks in the terminal. Okay, so right. So I can use the hashtag to comment my code. any code I do not want to run, apart from using it to write things or to like take notes to document your code, you can use it to like just keep anything you want in your code, but you do not want it to run or affect your code. Like for example, I just want to maybe explain this function. I'll just put function to add two numbers. When I run this, there is no output, but there's no error because it's a comment. Python just ignores it. If I bring in this function here, the function still works exactly the same way. The comment has no effect at all. It's just a comment. Function works exactly how it should. The comment is just to explain what it is and just to keep information. If I decide to comment this, I'm basically commenting my function. So this is when there will be a problem because now I'm not declaring the function. In this code, Python thinks I'm trying to just do sum equals A plus B and return sum because I've commented my function declaration and it is not seeing it anymore. It's like an ignored part of the code. When I remove my comments from there and I run it normally, it works as it should. So that is just how to document your code or your function. You can use your hashtag. Hashtag is the symbol used to comment your code. Moving on to the next thing. So yes, I said we're going to discuss arguments and parameters properly. So we've discussed parameters a little, but I can go over it again. So a parameter is a value that is put in the parentheses when defining the function. It's here. There are optional values which allow values to be passed to a function when it is called. So they are the ones that allow you to be able to pass arguments through your function when you're trying to call your function. And you put them in the declaration. When you're declaring your function, you put them in the parentheses. Now to arguments. So arguments are values that are passed through functions. That is when you are calling the function. And they can be positional arguments and keyword arguments. We have two types of arguments, positional arguments and keyword arguments. When I ran a code previously, it gave me an error saying positional argument not expected. When I was trying to show how parameters work, I showed you the error. I still have it here, so I can show it to you again. Error here. Okay, yes, I get it. It's an example of what will happen if you do not specify your parameter and you try to run in an argument. To give you, it takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. So this is positional arguments. We also have keyword arguments. So there are two types of arguments, positional and keyword, and they are different. They work in different ways, right? So positional arguments are types of arguments where the values passed to a function are matched based on their position in the function call. The name is positional argument and it is sensitive like position. The way you arrange your arguments or the way you arrange your parameters when you are defining your function is the way you have to arrange your arguments when you are calling the function. It is very sensitive position. If you arrange it wrong, then you get a wrong output. I would give an example of that. They are the most common way of passing arguments to functions. So I can show you an example of how position argument uses position. Here. So if I were to define a function that has more than one parameter, because you can define a function with more than one parameter, I can say define is a sample function. I want to put my name and age, then colon. Then I want it to print name plus is with a space plus age plus years old. I want you to return this. Let's put a space here. I want you to return this. Then when I'm calling this function, sample function, I'm going to pass in the name I want, comma, any age I want, something like this. And then it will print, sorry. Oh, okay, yeah. I was supposed to make this a string because I'm trying to concatenate things, and then it can't concatenate two types of data types, like integer and string. I'm supposed to use 30 as a string and not an integer. So I have to code 30. So now to give me this, I'll put a space here so I can have this. So yeah, I get this. So if I were to run this or call this function, and then put my positional argument in another order, like maybe put 30 first. It will give me 30 is Aisha years old, which is not what I want. So you can see the position as affected because this name comes first. So it is taking 30 as the name and Aisha as the age. So this is how positional arguments work with position. The one you put first is the one that will come first. So it's comparing this definition and the call. And then when it's comparing it, it's comparing their positions, name and Aisha in the same position, age and 30 are in the same position. For this, name and 30 are in the same position, age and Aisha are in the same position. So the way to run your function is not what you'd want. So you have to be careful when you're putting your positional arguments. Then for keyword arguments, which is the second type of argument. So keyword arguments are a way to pass arguments to a function based on the parameter names of the function rather than their positions. So when you are putting keyword arguments, it does not depend on the position. The position is not important. When calling a function with keyword arguments, the argument which corresponds to a parameter is specified using the parameter's name and an equal to sign and the argument. I'll show that here so you can understand what I'm saying. This is a keyword argument. This is how it works. I'm defining this function, spacesuit, the color is equals to blue. This here is a parameter that is used to define a keyword argument. As you can see, I have color equals to blue. I'm putting two things, and that's what is said here. You are specifying it using the parameter's name and an equal to sign. And then when you're specifying a keyword argument, you're specifying it in the brackets, as usual.
Mo, calm down. Everton a bit
So
person.
yes, keyword arguments are based on the names of the function rather than their
So they
position. So they are not sensitive to
2-0
position.
last
You can
match.
vary them as you wish. When calling a function with keyword argument which corresponds to a parameter is specified using the parameter's name and an equal sign and the argument. So here, keyword arguments are specified from the beginning. You have to set an initial variable for a keyword argument before you're able to change it. As you can see here, I commented this. I wrote a little comment on keyword argument. So no initial variable is provided for the function, unlike positional argument. For you to define a positional argument, or for you to pass in a parameter, you have to pass in a parameter for the positional argument. Like in the former one, we put name here, and we're able to put Aisha as the argument. But for this, you're not putting name here, you're not putting any variable. Instead, you're putting an initial value. You're saying that color is like me saying name is equal to Aisha from the start. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. It's like me saying name is equals to Aisha from the start for that. But like that is how a keyword argument works. You have to put what you need, then put a value to it from the beginning. Then as you go on, you can change the default value. So you're setting a default value for your keyword argument when defining your function. Then you can put whatever you want the function to do and call the function. I can give you an example or show you how to do it here. So you see how it works. Please, are you trying to speak?
No.
Someone is raising the person's hand. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, so when defining a function, can you not declare a parameter, but then later in the function, you then, I don't know, later in the function, you don't want to add a parameter or something. Is that possible?
So you have to define the parameter from the beginning for you to be able to put the argument. If not, you get an error. I think I showed that before here. I showed that here when I put define grid 2 without any parameter. And then I try to put in an argument. So it's giving me positional argument. It doesn't expect any argument, and I'm putting an argument because I didn't define any parameter from the beginning.
Then does it work the other way around? If you define the parameter and argument, and then you then later on you don't call it at all, will the function still run?
It will tell you it expected an argument and that you didn't give it any. I can try it here and show you. So if I put name here, and I try to call it, it's missing one required positional argument, name. So anything you put here is what it expects when you are running it.
That's not what I meant. I meant like since you put name as a parameter in the function when you're creating the function, if you
Okay.
then let's say just print a statement or something, like you don't use that
Name.
parameter that you don't use that name exactly, but the function still runs. Let's say underneath the name you just said print hello world, and
Okay.
you didn't make use of the parameter you put at all. Will the function still work?
But you call it using the argument.
Yeah.
The function should still work because you are the one determining what you want to do with your function. This is an example. It will still work. So sorry. I'll run this again. It will still work. But at least you have to
Okay.
put in an argument here.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show an example of keyword argument. So let me use this, something like this. So if I define function FNT, I just want to call it FNT. Then I want to put keyword argument name equals to this because I have to set an initial value or a default value for it. Then maybe print name. Then when I call this, I can call it without anything in the bracket because it is a keyword argument. There's already an initial value for this. But then sometimes I want to change this default value. I want to put another value that I prefer. So I can then call it with something new, name equals, then to put this. So this is how to specify keyword arguments. You have to put an initial value or a default value, and this is how to edit the initial value or default value. That's this line. So that's how keyword arguments and positional arguments work.
Okay. So all we have to do is to call the function name and change it, right?
For arguments,
Yeah, for the keyword argument.
okay,
You
yes, when
change
we
the
have, sorry, you were saying?
how you change the name. We just need to call back, then change it straightforward.
Yes, so we're like redefining it.
Okay.
We're putting name, then equals to the new name we want.
All right.
If we add
That.
multiple here,
Mm-hmm.
we can maybe age again. Let's see.
Just to. Okay.
Print name, the age. We can call this. It will give you the two of them.
All
If you
right.
run this, it will give you the
With the
same,
other
the
age.
initial one, yes, because you
Okay.
didn't specify a new thing here. And if you were
Okay.
to specify, you can specify it in any order.
Oh.
If I put age first, age equals to, maybe I'll change to 25. It will still put name before age because name and age are first. And in this, it is not it's not sensitive to position. It does not
Oh,
depend on position, unlike the positional argument.
all right. Okay. I think I get that. Thank you.
You're welcome. So to the next thing we have here, that is, okay, that's just examples of positional and keyword arguments. This is positional arguments. Just pass the arguments directly through the function. So define welcome name. Then you want to print hello name. So this here is an F string. I don't think we've mentioned F string in this class. So I can explain what an F string is. Because I use an F string in that code. So I can explain what an F string is. I think you already know what a string is. It's just text values that you want the you want to be printed, and then or you want values can be stored in variables, or you can put them in print statements, and they're always in quotes. So sometimes you want F strings. For example, I want to print, I have a variable name
Labra.
equals to this. And then I want to print
Guy, no,
maybe
Brian
Mustang,
Masbule start.
Brahim Gule,
your
I don't
Kimi,
understand.
name
Brahim Gule,
is,
Kimi,
My fault.
Mbappe.
My fault.
this is the normal way of doing it.
My fault. Robavelia and Kinigo.
This is the normal way of doing it.
My fault.
It will give me your name is Aisha. But I can do it without defining this variable. I can put in this in the print statement straight up by using an F string. So you can use an F string with either your capital F or your small f, any case, lowercase or uppercase f. So print, in your print statement, you put F first, then you put a quotation mark, then you put what I want. I want your name is, so I have to use a curly brace to put the value I want. I want Aisha. Sorry, I didn't put this in quote. So I can do it like this, or I can bring this variable name and put it into this curly bracket. I can do that also. Give me the same output name. So these are different ways of using an F string, either putting the variable name or putting the exact thing you want straight up. Then I use lowercase f, so I can change to uppercase f if I wish. It works with an uppercase or lowercase f. So I can use an uppercase f, still an F string. So this is how an F string works. It's just one line of code. So we have examples of positional arguments and keyword arguments here. Define welcome name. Then I want to print, I use an F string to print hello name. I just put the variable name here straight up. So when I put name, it's expecting the name here to come here. And the name here is a parameter. So the argument here will be shown in this place. So I'll be expecting hello Nick. Then I can pass multiple question arguments. I've shown that already. So name, then this, then I want print welcome name to the spaceship. As you see, I use F string twice. Name, then spaceship. Just always remember to put your curly braces. Then you can put your variable name inside it. Then I call the function here. This is for positional. Then this is for keyword. The same way I showed the example earlier. Color equals to blue. Then I'm putting color, I use an F string here also. Your spacesuit is, so I'm going to print your spacesuit is blue when I call the function. Then to change the default value, like I did, color equals to red. Then here I'm combining keyword arguments and positional arguments. So when combining keyword and positional arguments, as usual, the keyword argument, yeah? Okay. As usual, the keyword argument is still not sensitive to position or does not depend on position, but the position argument still depends on position. When combining them, when combining them, the position argument goes before the keyword argument. You have to always put your positional argument first before your keyword argument. So as in this case, I put my position argument, name spaceship, before putting my keyword argument, color equals to blue. If I interchange it and put keyword before positional, it will give me an error. So then I use an F string to print welcome the name to the spaceship. Your spacesuit is color. I already have a default color here. So I tried to change it in this place. So I called the function the first time and I got with the default color. Welcome Aisha to the US voyage. Your spacesuit is blue. That's the default color because I did not specify any color when calling this. Then when I called this, I specified a color. I changed the color to red. This is how to join them together. That's positional argument and keyword argument. Remember, your positional argument always comes first. Then I decided to just touch the differences between parameters and arguments. I think I've explained it so far, but I can always go over it again. So your parameters, they are variables listed in the function definition, while your arguments are arguments. They are actually values or data passed to the function when it is called. So while you put your parameters when you're defining the function, you put your arguments when you're calling the function. I think I've showed that severally. Then location for parameters, they are placeholders in the function signature or definition. So placeholders means they are used to, you're trying to keep the space. So you're, like the name implies placeholder, you're trying to keep the space for a future value. So I'm just putting them, but they're not what I actually need. So they're just placeholders. So that's why I call them placeholders in the function definition, while arguments are the real values supplied in the function call. So they are replacing the placeholders that we put before, and the placeholders are the parameters. The purpose of parameters, they define the input that the function expects to receive when it is called. So it is the amount of parameters we put that the function is expecting. We saw some errors before. Anytime you do not put parameters and you put in arguments, you get an error. Or when you put in parameters and you do not put in arguments, you get an error. So your parameters is defining the input that a function expects to receive when it is called, while your arguments are the actual data that is passed into the function's parameters during the function call. So they are used to replace the parameters during the call. An example, this is a small example here. Define, this is like a function, define add numbers A and B. A and B are the parameters. And when you are calling it, add numbers 5 and 10. 5 and 10 are the arguments. Please, can you mute yourself?
Hey, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So So I showed an example of parameters and arguments used together here. Define greet person, name and greeting. These are parameters. Then I want you to return this greeting, comma, name. Then I'm calling the function with arguments because parameter is for definition and argument is for calling. So return result equals to greet person. Then I want it to print result. So this is how parameters and arguments are used. I'm just giving a general function example here. I've done that a lot earlier. So define add numbers A and B. I want it to return A plus B. So the result, this is the defining and this is calling. So result is add numbers. And I want it to print result. So that is all for today. We're just discussing functions today. Next class we'll discuss modules and other Python. So the assignment for today is to create a function that converts temperature between Celsius and Fahrenheit. So if you have any question, please ask before we end the class. Does anybody have any question?
Not really, but please, this assignment,
Okay.
can you just show us like what we just need to do, like a sample or something? Because
Okay.
just clueless right now. Can't even. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll show it here. So we're going to define a function that converts. I want it to take in temperature. I want to convert from degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. There is a standard formula for that. And that is
I'm using MTN like this now.
so I'll say Fahrenheit
Same thing I'm using.
F2 equal to, let me call this C temperature, that's Celsius temperature, then Fahrenheit temperature
Maybe check.
is equal to sorry. I think the conversion is your value in Celsius
Divided by 5 plus 32. Is that it?
times 9/5.
Okay.
So times is asterisk times 9. I want to divide by 5. Then plus 32.
Plus 32. Oh.
This is what I want you to give me. And I want you to return the temperature in Fahrenheit. So I'll call it now. With okay. You know what's going to happen in this? I'm going to get an error here because I'm going to put in a string. Wait, sorry. Let me try. Okay, it works. It works. I don't have to convert. I thought I had to convert it to integer, but it works this way. So if I put in 12, so 12 from degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit is 53.6.
0.6.
So I've converted 12 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. So that's how to go about the assignment. You can make use other values, define it in any way you wish.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So please, does anybody have any other question? If you have no question, you can react with a thumbs up or something, so I know I'm clear. Thank you for listening. So the call will end in 2 minutes. So before the call ends, let's end with ourselves. Thank you for joining the call, and please do your assignments. Thank you very much.
Gaza.